Welcome to Make America Healthy Again. Join Dr. Charles Antinori and friends as they share solutions, tips, and insights that only doctors know for creating better health. Here's Dr. Antinori.
This is the Make America Healthy Again podcast. I'm Dr. Antinori, and today my guest is one of our surgical residents, Dr. Rebecca Kolbeck. Rebecca, here, just tell them a little bit about your background.
Well, originally, I'm from Wisconsin, born and raised, and I went to college in Texas and at the University of Dallas. And from there, I went to Virginia for medical school. I went to Liberty University. And when I was in Virginia, I did a rotation in New Jersey at Inspira Health, and I fell in love with the surgery program there. And I was fortunate. I ranked them my number one, and I was fortunate to match them as well. So I've been here in New Jersey at Inspira for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, the program, even though it was like a relatively new program, you were probably the, I don't know, 7th or 8th year of the program when you got taken. And the first couple of years were a little sketchy, but by the time you came along, we were only going. We were three. I don't know. Your year was 4 people. Was it 4? Yeah. It had been 3, and then they upped it to 4, and we were only going to like 8 or 12 or something like that to get to the 4 people. So it was, it was really rewarding to see the whole way the program, really improved. The quality of the people we got and the training and everything.
Hidden gem of Southern Jersey.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I always tell people South Jersey is like the land that time forgot. It's like you're right. You're right on the coast. You're like, you're depending on where you live, you're like 20, half an hour to an hour from Philadelphia, an hour and a half from New York, 30 minutes from Atlantic City, 30 minutes, 45 minutes from the shore, 120 miles of shore, stuff like that. So there's just so many really, and it's actually, especially like in the central part of Jersey, Vineland and even Mullica Hill and Glassboro and everything, it's actually not that crazy expensive to live compared to a lot of other places on the East Coast and the West Coast. And, really, there's really a lot going for it.
Yeah, it's a nice area for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so what are your thoughts about, having the surgical residency? How's that treated you so far?
I remember when I was a medical student and I did my 3rd year surgery rotation, they told me if there was anything else I could see myself doing instead of surgery, to do that. And I guess I didn't know what I was getting into. People describe it like drinking from a fire hydrant, and I think that's even an understatement.
Yeah.
But it's been a good time. I would say this has been probably the busiest I've ever been in my life, which makes sense. But I've definitely learned more than I ever thought I would, grown more than I ever thought I would. I'm a whole different person than when I started residency. So I'm excited to see where the next 1.5 years take me as well.
Yeah, that's great. You reminded me, a couple of things you reminded me of, like going to Texas. I went to Texas for 2 years, in Houston, after I was a total Northeast guy, New York, up of Boston and, Cornell and so, but I always was in the Northeast, and Texas was just like a breath of fresh air for me. It was really unbelievable to go to state that. And, the funny thing too was, like, I left New York in 78. I had been there for the first Arab oil embargo. I actually hit Texas for the second Arab oil embargo. New York went bankrupt while I was a resident. One of the hospitals I was actually doing a rotation at Delafield Hospital in Manhattan. When it went bankrupt, they had to close the hospital. It was a city hospital. They closed about 4 or 5 city hospitals. Columbia had been using it sort of as their ward service. They were sending all the ward patients, all the indigent patients, over to. It was literally right across the street from the main Columbia Hospital. But I felt like I was in a deteriorating city in a deteriorating country. It was 2 horrible winters. One winter we got like 60 inches of snow. Another winter was like frigid cold, all the time and everything. It was just, and with the oil prices and gas, it was like the end of the world. And I went to Texas, Houston, especially, just like that. I'm sure Dallas is the same way, but Houston's like the oil drilling capital of the world at the time. And it was like, that was booming, so it really changed my outlook on everything. And then I got to go to Saudi Arabia for the last 4 months, and there was a place that was really booming. Money was coming out of the ground like, nobody's business, It was really, and it gave you a better outlook on the whole world. I mean, when you was the way things were deteriorating in New York, it was like, oh, and because it's considered like
Hmm.
America's best city and everything. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if they elect this guy Mamdani too.
Hmm.
That could be really interesting for the next couple of years to see. I don't know if he'll be able to
Yeah.
implement a lot of his programs, of his ideas anyway. But we'll find out about that tomorrow. I guess.
Yeah.
But. But that was it. The other thing you said that really maybe struck me is I used to always tell, I don't know if it was me that told you this, but about the drinking from fire hydrant. I don't use that expression, but I always used to tell the medical students, like, it's good if you hate your surgery rotation. You know, I don't want you going through a surgery rotation and thinking, oh, it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
you're going to be very disappointed when you get into the
When you hit the
residency
wards.
program. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, good, if you hate your surgery rotation, then you never feel, because a lot of people I think feel bad that they didn't go into surgery like later, like it,
Hmm.
because it is, for all the hardship and everything, it is more rewarding, and I
Hmm.
think if you really absolutely hate the surgery rotation, I think it's, you don't have any second thoughts,
Yeah. You won't miss
later on
it.
down. Yeah. So you guys basically work 80 hours a week now. It's pretty much solid.
Give or take, it's averaged over 4 weeks now. And I definitely have some busier weeks, especially when I was on trauma as a second year. Those were a couple of busy weeks, but then here and there you'll get like a 60 or 70 hour work week. So it's not all just straight
Hmm.
80 hours each week. But I would say over the course of a month, it probably averages around 70 to 80. But
Yeah.
I don't think
What
I've
what
rarely gone over duty
What is
hours.
it how often are you on call? Every third, every fourth?
It's
In
it's
average, I
about
mean.
every third, yeah, every
Yeah.
third to fourth day, depending on the rotation. Over at Mullica Hill, it's a good bit of
Is it?
call, but that's I think always good because you get a lot of cases as well
Yeah, right,
overnight too.
right,
So
right.
it's kind of fun being the on-call resident.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a double-edged sword, but
right. Absolutely. Well, every
yeah, it's
third,
not bad.
on every third, that used to average out to between 100 and 110 hours. But when you're on every third, you're off the day after you've been on call. So it probably
Hmm.
knocks it down to like 80, 90, something like that, I would imagine. Or so yeah, between every fourth actually was almost, that was kind of livable. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
occasionally I would have an every fourth rotation, and that's like one weekend out of every other, one day out of every other weekend.
Hmm.
That's not too bad.
No.
Every other is horrible.
Yeah.
When I was at Columbia, it was mostly every third. Where I did my general surgery was mostly every third night. There were a few every other. With chest surgery was every other. Cardiac
Uh-huh.
surgery. They really abused you to the max. And
Yeah.
and then like used to change one time. By the time the third year came on, I had it like in the middle of the year, and it was like, what was it? I think it was 10 weeks. And I said, this is great. They can't possibly get more than, I got an even number of weeks, so I'm going to be on like at most 5 weeks, because no, they switched their rotation at the middle because it lapped over the Christmas.
Oh.
I had like 5 weeks in one year and 5 weeks in the second year, so they switched me to like the other team, like at New Year's, who was on call again. So I ended up with like six rotations and 6 weekends on call out of 10.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, but still, I've told you about the guys that lived in the hospital with the Dr. DeBakey, the guys that spent 2 months. That
Yeah.
that was the ultimate. I couldn't believe that. These guys lived in the ICU. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, you know how it got to be 80 weeks or 80 hours a week, right? Did you ever hear that story?
No, I
Libby
don't think
Zion.
so.
Yeah, it's another New York City story. A girl named Libby Zion, Zion, she's the daughter of one of the editors of the New York Times, and she went into Cornell. This is I think it was after I finished residency. I think it was like late '70s, early '80s, something like that. And she went into Cornell, and she was sick, and an intern who was being on call for 24 hours took her history and everything like that, and she died, basically. But what happened was she didn't tell people that she'd been using cocaine. She left that
Oh, oh
she left
no.
that out. And I mean, you hear the story. I mean, I've heard the story 10 different ways, depending on which way you want to skew it. Like the medical people are saying, she didn't tell us the truth, and all that,
Uh,
that sort of thing. Then meanwhile, the other media says, oh my God, they had this got poor doctor working, all day long. And it was just an intern. He didn't know what she or she didn't know what he was doing, at the time. And that's why Libby Zion died. But
mm,
that was the beginning. So they got on it. And that's what started the wheels rolling to cut it
yeah.
down. I read it. I was reading a book, what's it called? Do No Harm. It's by a neurosurgeon from England. The registrars there, they're like the residents. They're down to like 48 hours a week. But I don't know how in surgery. I don't know how you're going to get trained like that.
No.
I mean, you could be doing 10, 12 years of residency to get the equivalent amount of experience that you really need.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
48 hours a week.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's like almost like a normal human being.
That's a 9 to 5.
Well, people must think we're crazy when you're saying like 80. I don't really feel like 80 is too easy. I think 80 is reasonable.
Hmm.
And you still get to see most of it, and you need some time off. So I think it's been at 80 for quite a while too now. I don't
Yeah.
see a big push to lower it either. I think they also realize the powers that be realize that you kind of need, unless you want to lengthen the residency, which nobody wants to do. You know what I mean? Because it's just
Hmm.
so much stuff you guys got to learn.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And that was one of the other podcasts was talking about solutions to this. Forget where I read it. I think it was in New England Journal, where they're talking about cutting medical school to 3 years. Like the
Oh.
article was talking about this was maybe in the New England Journal or JAMA, and they're saying like a lot of people are like you did, I did to a certain extent. In the fourth year did do sub intern rotations and things like that, and it's to get yourself ready for internship. But
Hmm.
the truth is once you get dropped in the internship, it's a horrible couple months no matter how you do it, and then after a few months you usually find your
Yeah.
path, you settle down, but there's no way to avoid it. So there's, and that makes, I think, the most sense. Cutting college, you'll be even less well-rounded than
Hmm.
people are, and less mature,
Yeah.
even than they are now, coming out.
Yeah. That's definitely not where I would cut corners is on the college experience.
Right, right. I did. I mean, I did college in 3 years, but I didn't really cut corners because I did a whole semester at Columbia in summer school. I had 14 hours
Oh,
in
yeah.
in one summer school. It was great. I took physics. I
That
took
sounds
physics
amazing.
and art history. It was a good place to take art history too, because like half the things were in the museums in New York. You could
Oh, yeah.
read
Yeah.
about them and go downtown and find them. But I took and art history was easy and physics was pretty hard. So that was
Yeah.
like a semester right there. And then I had some advanced placement and I took a few extra credits every year and got through. So I ended up because I knew I wanted to do surgery. I knew from
Yeah.
early that I wanted, and
Hmm.
I knew it was. I mean, when you first learn, like I remember watching like Ben Casey when I was a kid. It was I know you probably didn't even know who he was. It was a
No.
TV show. He's actually one of my brother-in-law's cousin that played him. His name was Vincent Zoino, but on
Uh-huh.
TV they called him Vince Edwards. It was his name. He played Ben Casey. He played this neurosurgery resident, and so like that was like one of the things I thought I wanted to be in the beginning. And then I found out that was like 9 years after medical school. See, like, oh my God, like how long can how long can that be?
Well, cardiothoracic was not that short either, though. You had
Seven,
five
yeah,
years of
seven, and a
general
lot of
surgery
people it
and
takes eight. It's probably 8 now most of the time, I would imagine, right? Yeah,
yeah,
and actually, I think you can do neuro in 7 or 8 too.
yeah.
Yeah, It's interesting. In plastics, I think it's going back to where you have to do general surgery first. I heard that from who's going into plastics. What's her name? Uh,
Jasmine.
Jasmine. Jasmine was
Hmm.
telling me that they're going back and which I think is really good. I think that's better. To be
Yeah,
fully trained.
yeah.
And same thing with thoracic. I don't know what the rules are with thoracic, but I think it's better to be able to because I guess like me, especially thoracic surgery can really dry up and really you need a huge catchment area to
Yeah.
really be busy just doing thoracic,
Hmm.
especially, I mean, cardiac was something, now cardiac is, a lot of it has really dried up,
Yeah.
and, so to be able to do general surgery, also, I mean, for me, it was a big help and I enjoyed it too. It helped even before then when I was at Cooper. you really didn't get to work with the residents very much when you did cardiac. I mean, maybe they come in to help you take the vein or something like that, but they really,
Hmm.
they really didn't. We didn't have thoracic, and we didn't have thoracic residents. So, you didn't have them go on pump with you or any of that sort of thing. Very, very
Sure.
rarely,
Hmm.
very rarely, you know. Um, so, I got to work with the residents a lot more doing general surgery than
Yeah.
when we did the cardiac surgery. Because you mostly cardiac, we did mostly with our partners who were, fully trained surgeons. But
Hmm.
anyways, you were talking about going into minimally invasive after this, huh? Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I guess ever since starting general surgery residency, it's what I wanted to still do is general surgery.
Yeah,
But with how much more the robots have become, how innovative it is, and how much more prevalent they are,
mm,
I want to get more experience with robotics as well. And I think one of my former chiefs said that he can market himself now as either a robotic or open surgeon. And I like the idea of that of giving more
which former chief is that?
experience.
Who's that?
David Kelter.
Oh, David. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But really focusing still on general surgery, but on a robotic approach and either
Yeah.
doing things robotically or open. And Dr. Bashian, he had a really good insight that robotics helps us from converting to open. If you were doing something laparoscopically and it got a little bit more complicated, the chances of converting to open are higher if you're laparoscopic as opposed to robotic. And I think
Right.
that's one of the big reasons of wanting to continue in robotic training so that I can get more experience with, I guess, the way and the direction it seems surgery is going, especially general surgery is going right now.
Yeah, it is interesting. Chris Fashion did two podcasts with me. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah,
You can listen.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you should listen because
Yeah, I
you
listened
know
to
half
his.
the
They're
people
good.
that I've done these with, and it's fun. Like if you drive, I know you don't have much of a drive to work. I have like an hour up to Elmer, so
I
I
got
listen to
three
the
minutes
podcast and
to
stuff on
Malika.
the ride up and the ride back. But but Chris said, exactly the same thing what you were saying, and I think it remains because I was saying to him, from the reading I've done, the only knock on robotic is the fact that it drives up costs. You have to
Mm,
pay for the robot, you have to pay for the arms,
yeah,
but he and his point is if it saves one open,
yeah.
that's a lot of cost, right there.
Hmm.
One, and I was always saying too, like when I finished, back in 78, 80, we wanted to do like bigger and bigger operations. Like I trained with, Stanley Crawford. I don't know if you ever heard of him. The Crawford classification of thoracoabdominal aneurysms. That's him.
Yeah. Okay. Huh.
So like he did when you were trained with him, he did, thoracoabdominal incisions. You'd make a thoracotomy and then tee it down into the abdomen, replace the aorta and he just did clamp and go too. No shunts, no bypass, no nothing.
Wow.
Just clamp the aorta and sew like as fast as you possibly can. And his results were very good. I
Uh-huh.
think uh, as time went on, I think the people that were still doing that went more to bypass or at least a shunt.
Hmm.
But I think that actually dominated. But you don't even hear now. Well, what's happened too is it got practically totally replaced with endovascular.
No, yeah.
It's just about the only thing left. I think is the arch. I don't think they've
Yeah.
really been able to do too much endovascular with the arch yet. But all the thoracic. I remember one of the first times I saw them replace. I think it was like a motor vehicle accident or something like that, and the guy had the typical, at the pulmonary ligament
Yeah.
tear in the aorta, and we had a good interventional radiologist. I think this is a Cooper, and he, went in and put in a stent. It was over.
Wow.
Supposed to, taking a guy to the OR and opening his chest,
Yeah.
having a ton of blood in there, sewing a graft in and all of that, clamping the
Uh-huh.
aorta, sewing a graft in. And I thought, oh my God, really,
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah. And the same thing goes for it may take a little bit longer to do the surgery, but if you can just do it a couple poke holes, the
Yeah.
recovery is just so much better that people get
Hmm.
back to work faster. That's another cost saving,
Yeah,
I wonder
decreased
though,
lengths of stay and
yeah, right,
postoperative pain
exactly.
also.
I've been doing a lot of reading because I'm going to write. Number one, I got a lot of time on my hands, and number two, compared to when I was working, and number two, I'm going to probably try to write a sequel. Like Make America is America Healthier or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I read this one book that compared who has the best healthcare system, A couple interesting things about the United States. I mean, we're way far the most expensive, like double
Hmm.
Switzerland, who is like number two. You
Yeah.
know, and but we have like we're among the fewest hospital beds per number of hospital beds has gone down by thousands, over the last couple of decades, and our lengths of stay has gotten shorter and shorter. So we really, per 100,000 population and everything, we actually have one of the lowest numbers of hospital beds and the lowest hospital days and things like that. So and we have done that, the surgeons. I mean, like I say, when I started out, you have your gallbladder taken out. It was a week in a hospital. You spent 3 days with an NG tube. Then you had clears and
Mm.
fulls and, a regular diet. I mean, now 80% of people that have their gallbladder taken out probably go home the same day.
Yeah.
Would you say? Yeah, something like that? Mhm.
Yeah, at the least 80%.
I think the thing that's going to be tricky to figure out with the robot is the simple procedure. I mean, I really think it's probably going to turn. I mean, I've referred people to Dr. Scherzer and stuff for like things up under the diaphragm and things
Uh-huh.
like that, where I really thought, or down in the, I didn't refer for the pelvis, but I've also heard people saying working down in the pelvis is where the robot is really good. In fact, the urologists are the guys that kind of started it.
Oh, yeah.
They were the ones that, yeah, when Cooper bought a robot around the Women's Auxiliary bought a robot like around 2000, 1998 maybe. And they just it was just sitting there. It was in a foyer for a while, and you could play with it. And then they put it in the OR, and guys would play with it, but nobody really used it. And then the urologists started using it, and then they really are the ones that initially, popularized using the robot. And then bit by
Hmm.
bit, everybody sort of caught on. But I just wonder where the thing's going to be with like doing a routine appy or a routine, you know, Coley, but the problem with the Coley is you never know which one's going to be routine.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just get surprised, even in
Never
happy,
just a gallbladder.
yeah, it never does. Well, I've talked about the American College of Surgeons meeting every year it's usually the first Monday morning, 8 o'clock meeting. It's on laparoscopic cholecystectomy, and the title is usually something like, laparoscopic. It's the most well-attended meeting of the whole symposium, usually too. And the title's usually something like, laparoscopic cholecystectomy, a nickel and dime operation with $1 million consequences. I've been sued more for a laparoscopic cholecystectomies than anything else. Probably
Uh-huh.
everything else added together. Because people expect them to just lickety split and nothing ever to go wrong,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and some of the things you can't even avoid.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how much so you get a fair amount of robotic experience even here, right?
Yeah, and it's gone up over the last couple of years from what I've seen.
Yeah,
And over at Malika, we have 6 robots now in total.
6, really?
Yeah, we have 3 robot rooms and there's 2 consoles in each room.
Yeah, I see
So,
what you mean. So yeah, and each part you can control different things. Like the resident is allowed to control part of it too, right? The second
oh
console.
yeah, yeah, you
Yeah,
can change
yeah,
your insufflation, you can change your cautery levels.
yeah.
And it's nice. So, especially for challenging cases, we have whatever attending we're with sitting right next to us, and you can take the arms and give the arms pretty easily.
Mm,
I know Dr. McCann, when I first started doing gallbladders with him, he would let you have 1 arm, and then he would let
yeah,
you have 2 arms,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
before you knew it, you had 3, and then 4 arms.
Wow.
So that's really nice, is being able to sit right next to the attending on both on consoles, as opposed to one person getting up and down off of the console when you're switching off.
Oh yeah, yeah. That sounds much better to me. What was I going to say? Is the visualization? They make the robot people make a big deal out of the stereoscopic, the depth perception that you got to,
Yeah.
3D picture. To me, I'm kind of wondering because I mean the two cameras can't be more than like a few millimeters apart from each other. But the fact that you have two eyepieces that one is one and one is the other or something like that, does it really give you a much better depth view? You think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting whenever, especially if you have like 2 cases in one day and one's robotic and one's laparoscopic, it's really interesting to go back and forth between a laparoscopic camera and a robotic camera. And it's really, they've come a long way. It's really good on the robot.
You think the robot? Yeah, the robot. That would be a big plus to just see better. I mean,
Oh
and
yeah.
I started out, you can't believe what the laparoscopic cameras were like. I mean, you were like
Yeah.
working in the candlelight, in the beginning, just sort of like, just hacking that gallbladder out, when I mean, it was a completely on the job training. I took like a 2-day course down in Marietta, Georgia in like 1989 or something like that. When like, I took it with Eddie Joe Reddick, which it was actually Eddie Joe Reddick's partner
Hmm.
toward ours. But that's who started. It wasn't started by academic people. It was started in the community hospital. This Eddie Joe Reddick was partners with a gynecologist, and they
Hmm.
used to cover each other and help each other and stuff like that. And the gynecologist was starting to do like tubal ligations and things like that, laparoscopically. And
Yeah.
we got the Eddie Joe Reddick got the idea, hey, you know what, maybe we could take the gallbladder out this way, and the
Yeah.
rest, the rest is history. Yeah, yeah. So what I want, what other thing I just want to ask you, well, you kind of told us how you got from the Midwest to New Jersey, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I decided I would go wherever the opportunities led for education. I was more interested in the institution and the type of people I was working with as opposed to the location pretty much
Uh-huh.
for the last, I guess, like however many years since I was 18 and left
Yeah.
home.
Huh. That's great.
Um, and it's just led me from one place to the next. I think especially with the people I met, and even just coming here to New Jersey from Virginia was really about the people that I met here in New Jersey when I did a rotation at Inspire as a medical student.
Mm.
And I fell in love with the residents and the attendings, and you could see especially the chief year, the fourth and the fifth year class when I was a med student, I could see they seemed like full-fed fledged attendings already.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be like those people, and it didn't really cross my mind that I was moving to a new state in New Jersey. It seemed cool, but it was
Mm.
much more about the institution.
Yeah.
So I got pretty fortunate to meet the people I met
Have you thought
in
at
my
all about
path to here.
Have you thought at all about where you? I just got well. If you're going to do a fellowship, you don't have to worry too much about where you're going to go yet, huh? But have you
Yeah,
thought
I
at
guess
all?
I'll go
Thinking of
wherever
going
I
back
go
to
for that one.
Wisconsin, or
I think
you're just going?
eventually,
Uh-huh.
I want to make my way back to Wisconsin. Most all my family is still back there. But yeah, I guess for fellowship, we'll see where the next path takes me.
Yeah. Well, the tough thing too is like even if unless you end up like really near your family, it's kind of hard to see them a lot. And like
Yeah.
I'm in Cape May, I'm like 2 hours away from most of my family, which makes it really
Hmm.
tough. When I was in Moorestown, I was like an hour away, but but
Hmm.
but we're an hour and 15, something like that. But being really busy, it's like we all are when you're doing a surgical practice, it gets hard to really keep in touch anyway, unless you're like
Yeah.
really living in the same town or something. Where,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. But well, listen, I think this was great. Really good to talk to you again, and we'll have to try to
Yeah.
keep inviting me to the dinners. Make sure Alex keeps you
Will
on the
do.
list. The toughest thing about that though is like I go to Elmer at like 7. I leave at like 7 o'clock in the morning, or before 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm done at like on 12:31, and then the dinners are like 6 o'clock. I'm like, what am I going to do for like 5 hours? So drive home and drive back. That's like 2.5 hours of driving. But once in a while it works out good. Yeah. So,
Thank you for having me, Dr.
oh
Antinori. It's
yeah,
always good to catch up with you.
yeah. Same here, Rebecca. Take it easy.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.